Welcome back, everyone. We've returned to the story tree for another encounter. I will say I haven't been uncomfortable out here in months. I can't remember the last time. It's eerily quiet out here tonight, and I am definitely uncomfortable. Anyway, the upload I've prepared for y'all tonight is heartbreaking. It involves dogs and a missing child. I thought I would give you a warning ahead of time anyway. This one pulled on my heartstrings, and so did last night's encounter as well. The ones that involve children always get me. It crushes me to think that a child would have to go through something that's horrible. So without spoiling anything early, I'll shut up. Go ahead and hit the like button on this video. If you would please, share it with as many people as you can. And one last thing before I get started. Consider subscribing to the channel. It's completely free and you get multiple new Dogman encounters every week. Thank each and every one of you for being here with me tonight. I truly appreciate it. Now let's go ahead and get into tonight's encounter. Grab a drink. Lock your doors and windows. Hit the lights. And let's get started. Hello, Real Adventures. Buddy, do I have a story to tell you? You know, I've been through a lot of bad stuff, weird and crazy things throughout my life. But this story completely dwarfs every other bad experience I've ever had. My name is M. I live with my wife, J, and our 4-year-old daughter at the time, E. We lived in a remote part of McCreary County, Kentucky. Our home was surrounded completely on all sides by woods, and I mean deep, endless woods. There wasn't a neighbor for miles away. We lived on a dead-end gravel road in the middle of nowhere at the time of this encounter. This all took place around 1999. We moved into that home in 1996. For around 3 years, everything was peaceful and quiet. But over a stretch of a 6-month period, something started happening that forced us to pack up and leave. Within that 6-month time frame, we lost 4 of our pets, our dogs to be exact. When you live in these remote places, sometimes things happen. You have to understand there's a price to pay sometimes for living in these mountains. No matter how careful you are with your pets, sometimes the predators in the area decide that they're just hungry enough to take your dog. A pack of hungry coyotes will drag your pet off into the trees where they will continue to make a meal of it. It's just the circle of life, unfortunately. Everything started with our German Shepherd, Duke. One morning I woke up and he was just gone. I found no signs of a struggle. There was no blood anywhere. A couple weeks later, our blue heeler, Sadie, disappeared the exact same way. Then the last one, Buddy, a Labrador mix, vanished in the middle of the night. I searched the woods for hours each time, but there just wasn't anything to find. When an animal disappears out there, there's usually no chance of finding it. I knew that the entire time I was searching, but I still had to try. That wasn't the only weird things that was happening. Certain nights I heard these really loud, strange howls going through the woods. And these weren't the yip or yap of a coyote. I know those sounds all too well. I was born and raised in Kentucky. I've heard every sound that can come from these woods. Or at least I thought I had at the time. These were loud, long, drawn-out howls. We don't have wolves in Kentucky, which, honestly, even if we did, this howl couldn't come from an animal that size. It was just too powerful. I had no clue what it was, and it honestly scared me every time that I heard it. There was a few nights that I'd also hear something walking around right outside the house. Whatever it was, I knew it was big because of the loudness of the footsteps. Also, whatever it was pretty bold, and it did not care if I heard it or not. I honestly think that it wanted me to know that it was out there. That's sure the way it acted. One day I was out cleaning some fallen limbs up out of the yard when I found some strange-looking tracks. They appeared to be canine tracks, but these things were ginormous. The pad on the foot was bigger than my entire hand. I could also clearly see the claw marks were pretty deep as well, so whatever left these prints was definitely on the hefty side. The only animal that I could think of in our area that could make a track like that, in my mind, would be a black bear. But those are few and far in between. We don't have many sightings, not in this part of the state. The print just didn't look like a bear to me, so I ruled that out. It really bothered me that I didn't know how to identify this animal. Jay tried her best to convince me that it had to be a black bear. I never told her any different, but I knew that it wasn't. No bear is going to leave tracks that look like that. We decided to get another dog later on, thinking maybe the others could have possibly just ran away. That can happen sometimes as well. We were going to be a lot safer and more careful with this one. He was going to stay inside to keep him from running off or having something worse happen. It was a young black Labrador puppy. We named him Toby. We made sure he was inside, especially at nighttime. But it didn't matter, because just a week after bringing him home, he disappeared in broad daylight. E was completely heartbroken. She cried for hours, asking me where Toby went, but I had no answers for my daughter. I promised her I'd search for him in the morning if he didn't come back before then. She was only 4 at that time, so losing her puppy hit her pretty hard. And I had a bad feeling that Toby was gone just like the ones before. Later that night, while sleeping, I had the worst nightmare of my entire life. I was standing in the woods. The trees were stretching abnormally high above me, and they were covered in fog. I could hear something moving in the trees all around me, circling me. I could see a massive black silhouette walking on 2 legs, slowly emerging from the fog. Its body was completely covered in matted fur. Its fur was as black as coal. The shape of its head, even in the fog, was unmistakably canine. It stopped about 20 feet in front of me. It had the strangest, glowing blue eyes. They were cold and very unsettling to look at, like burning ice. I tried to run, but if you've ever had a nightmare, you know that sometimes you just can't even move, especially when something horrible is chasing you. My feet would not move. The creature, which I would call a werewolf, stepped forward, showing me its full form. A monster wolf head. The upper torso had broad shoulders and looked like a man's chest. Its arms were very muscular, but the forearm section was way longer than a man's arms would be. The biceps were normal length. It was just the forearms that were way too long. This thing had clawed hands the size of a tennis racket. I watched its snout curl back into a growl, showing me its teeth. Just about the time it lunged right at me. That's when I woke up, struggling to breathe, covered in sweat. My heart was hammering out of my chest. It took me a couple of seconds to even realize where I was. Just a dream, but it sure felt real at the time. It felt way too real. Then an overwhelming urge hit me. I had a strong feeling that I needed to go check on E. I got up and headed down the hall towards her room. I slowly cracked her door open and peeked in. Her bed was empty. She was gone. My heart nearly stopped on the spot. I called out her name as I flipped on the light, praying that she was just under the blanket or maybe she was hiding. I checked the entire room. She was definitely not in there. Do you want to talk about fear? Let me tell you what fear is. Fear is when you wake up from a horrendous nightmare only to find your 4-year-old daughter is missing late at night. After you've been hearing strange, unnatural sounds outside your home, and 4 of your pets have gone missing. That's fear. I ran to wake Jay, and within seconds we were tearing through the entire house, searching under the beds, in closets, anywhere a 4-year-old might hide. But she was completely gone. She was not in that house anywhere. We checked everywhere. Overwhelming panic hit me like a freight train. I ran outside barefoot, yelling her name as loud as I could. The air was still, and it was completely quiet. Jay called 911, crying her eyes out as she begged them to please hurry. We lived so far out that I knew it would take at least 30 minutes for anyone to even get there. I wasn't about to wait on them. I grabbed a flashlight and a pair of boots and ran into the woods. I'm quite comfortable in the wilderness, but at this exact moment, with everything that's happening, the trees were almost suffocating me. My heavy breathing was very loud, as quiet as it was out there that night. I yelled her name over and over, my voice cracking. Then I began to hear a sound. It was something moving through the trees. It wasn't running, whatever it was walking, and it did not sound like E. It sounded like whatever it was big. I was listening very closely to try and pinpoint exactly where it was. Every hair on my body stood on the end, and my mind went straight back to my nightmare. That thing that I saw. My daughter missing out here in the dark. Those glowing blue eyes. That snarling face. Was it just a dream, or was it something else? I tightened my grip on my flashlight, shining it all around in the trees. I swear I saw something moving, stepping just out of my light's reach. Then I saw headlights flicker through the trees. The cops were there. The next hour was complete chaos. There were officers everywhere, and we all searched in a grid pattern, yelling her name the entire time. Jay was out of her mind, understandably, sobbing by the house, begging God for our daughter's safety. After the longest hour of my life, I heard one of the officers call out, "I found her." At that moment, my whole world stopped. He said I found her, but was she okay? I went numb, holding my breath. I ran toward his voice so fast that I was tripping over my own feet. And there she was, standing at the edge of the trees, holding a tiny little flashlight, tears streaked down her face. Jay and I just collapsed around her, crying and hugging her. My hands were shaking uncontrollably as I cupped her little face. We were questioning her, asking her, "Where did you go? What happened?" She sniffled a few times and told us she was looking for Toby. I swallowed hard and asked her, "Where did you go? Did you get lost? You shouldn't be outside here at night, especially." I was so happy that she was okay that I couldn't possibly be angry with her, not at that moment. After I asked her if she got lost, she shook her head no. What came out of her mouth was something that I never expected to hear from a 4-year-old. She said the big puppy took Toby. There was silence from everyone. Jay and I exchanged confused looks. Jay said, "What do you mean, sweetheart? What big puppy?" She wiped her nose and said, "The big black puppy with blue eyes in the woods. He's taller than Daddy, but he walks like we do." Jay grabbed onto my arm and asked E, "Did the big puppy take you too?" She shook her head no again. She said, "He scared me at first, but he didn't hurt me. He helped me find my way back home." My whole body turned into an ice block. I felt cold all over. She turned and pointed toward the dark tree line, and she said, "He's right there, Daddy. Don't you see him?" The hair on the back of my neck is rising right now just typing this out. I glanced quickly to where she was pointing, and I could swear for a brief second that I saw a set of blue eyes vanish into the dark. But I wasn't certain, so I just didn't say anything. The cops turned their flashlights into the trees, but there wasn't anything there. Nothing we could see. But we did all hear something. We heard a deep, loud thud, followed by the sound of something massive retreating into the woods, crashing through, breaking limbs and smashing things as it went. Nobody spoke a word. The officers just stood there and listened with their jaws clenched. They were not confused. They didn't act surprised. I looked at them and asked them what the hell was that. One officer, an older gentleman with graying hair, made eye contact with me. There was something about the look he had on his face. He looked like he knew something. I saw him swallow hard, and he just turned away, not answering. Another younger officer quickly spoke up and said it's probably just a bear, but I saw the way his hands were shaking. I saw the way they were all acting. They were acting as if nothing had just happened. They knew. They all knew. But none of them were willing to talk about it. The officer stayed for another hour taking our statements. They never said it outright, but I could tell they wanted us to drop it, move on, and just forget about it. Jay and I did not sleep that night. Thank God, my daughter was completely unharmed. We put her in bed with us, and we all laid down and literally cried tears of joy for the rest of the night. She just kept mentioning Toby over and over. She still talked about the big puppy for years after that. I know the kid didn't lie to me, because over the years her story never changed, not a single word. We decided to just not get any more dogs, not while we were living there anyway. About a month after that happened, we moved. I don't know what these dogmen are. I personally think they are linked to Nephilim somehow, or something to do with the giants. Your guess is as good as mine. I don't consider myself to be a very smart man, especially when it comes to things like this. I'm just a simple country guy. I just go to work, come home, take care of my family, and repeat. Werewolves or Dogman doesn't really fit in there anywhere for me. All I can say about this particular Dogman, whatever it is or wherever it came from, I feel like I owe it in some way. I owe it thanks because it did let my daughter go, and I don't know how I should feel about that. Nothing else strange ever happened to our family after that, but just knowing that something like that is out there right now. It'll almost break your mind if you ponder on it for too long. Well, that's my story. I hope it's interesting enough that you'll decide to narrate it on your program. As long as it's been since I had that nightmare, I can close my eyes right now and see that thing as clear as day. Pure nightmare fuel. Anyone that's listening, if you have pets or especially small children, and you live anywhere near a section of woods, for the love of all things holy on this earth, always keep your eyes on your children and your pets. The only thing I've ever felt that scared me more than the Dogman was when I realized my baby girl was missing. That right there will break the toughest of people. Well, I'm not used to typing this much, and I feel like I've typed out an entire book here for you. I'll be tuning into your podcast, waiting to see if I hear this. Me and Jay have been listening for a while, and we just got caught up on all of your episodes. Now, if we could hear our own story, that would make Jay a happy woman. She actually listens to you while we are falling asleep. I can't stand it. No offense, but it's just not something I want to listen to while I sleep. I can understand that. No apologies necessary, my friend. I appreciate you, buddy. Watch yourself out there in those woods. You and I both know what's out there. And you know how fast they are. That thing will be on you before you can even piss your own pants. We will be praying for you and your family. God bless you, amigo. Keep fighting the good fight. M. Well, you guys, I have to know one thing. I just want to know if all of your hearts stopped at the same moment that mine did. When I opened this email and began to read, when I got to the part where his daughter was gone out of her bed, my heart literally stopped and broke at the exact same time. All I could think about was, I hope they find her and she's okay. And then I started thinking about my twin daughters, how I would feel and what I would do if they were missing in the middle of the night. Whew, wow. I don't even want to think like that. M and J, I love to hear from you guys when you're fans of the channel. God, it still sounds so weird for me to even say that I have fans. So strange. Well, I'm glad you guys enjoy the encounters, and I'm even more glad that your daughter was found safe and unharmed. I can't imagine the feeling you must have felt when you realized she wasn't in the house. Absolutely gut-wrenching. I can't imagine. This is one time that I will have to not say I enjoyed reading your encounter. I don't like to lie, and if I told you I enjoyed it, I'd be lying. It broke my heart. But I hope you at least enjoyed the way I narrated it for you. And I didn't mean that. You know what I meant. It was a good story, but it just was heart-wrenching. This was a tough one, especially when you have kids of your own. Thank both of you for listening to the channel, and thank you especially for reaching out to me with this story. Hopefully, this brings you some small measure of peace. I'm glad that everyone came out safe from that encounter. As for the rest of you wonderful people, what do you guys think about this one? You can write in the comment section what you think, but I'm going to go ahead and tell you what I think right now. That's 2 nights in a row that we've had encounters involving small children. I can personally guarantee you right now, for the rest of this week and throughout this coming weekend, I am not uploading any encounters involving children. 2 in a row is more than I want to do. And I'm almost certain you guys will all agree. Anyways, I want to thank you all for being here with me tonight and listening to the encounter. You know, when I first started doing this, sometimes I would sit out here in the dark and I would get nervous. Now it doesn't bother me at all. I kind of feel like all of you guys are out here with me, so I don't really feel like I'm out here alone, if that makes any sense at all. It's just the way I feel. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed tonight's upload. I hope your week is still going well. We're getting closer to the weekend, guys. Just hang in there. It's almost over. Again, before you go, be sure to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. I've set a goal for myself. I want to hit 10,000 subscribers before spring. I would love it if we did, but if it doesn't happen, it's not a big deal. I just wanted to set a goal for the channel and strive to hit it. But it is getting late, and that's going to do it for tonight's encounter. Until next time, my friends, watch over your loved ones, keep your head on a swivel, and as always, good night.